Welcome to Off the Record, Airtable Secrets and Lore. We are a group of Airtable users exploring new ways to use Airtable to optimize our businesses and lives. Open to hearing from anyone about your experience, good or bad, using Airtable to make a positive impact in the world. We attempt to promote people coming from any level to share your ideas or ask questions. We also share our experiences, tips, and practices, and offer ways to get help and get involved in the community. We meet every Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time here in the Facebook group. So if you want to join, you can go to www.videowithben.com at that time, and it'll get you in the Zoom meeting and you can talk with us. So to kick things off, I don't have a set theme for this week. I know last week we went through a lot of page designer stuff, and I think it was last week that we talked about that. But this week, I understand we have a lot of news in the Airtable world. I know there's some stuff with like Softer. I've been looking into more page designer stuff since we last talked, and I know Rebecca's sent me quite a few different Airtable news pieces. But we can start with Airtable news.
Sure. Yeah, there's so much has happened in the last week with Airtable.
Kevon, do you want to kick us off with what you think is the most exciting piece of news?
Well, software editing is huge. I haven't seen it. I would love to be able to see it, but no time. And then also what I think is actually really big, but was kind of buried, is now you have the ability, if you're in a pro workspace or enterprise, you can prevent people from adding other people to your bases. Really? So yeah. One thing that we do know before was there was, anyone could add a new person to your base. Even a read-only could add another read-only. And it's like, well, what if you don't want people to be sharing your bases that much? Or people that are editors would add new editors, not realizing that affects your billing. Well, now you have the ability to say, nope, can't do that.
That's awesome. Can you restrict them from like copying your base?
That is not available yet, at least not in this new one. But and there was just a ton of other new ones. I think in the official Airtable community forums, there's the August product updates. It was just a big long laundry list of different things.
So how do you restrict someone from adding someone else?
Do it from the workspace settings, or I think the base settings, depending on what level you want to apply it to.
Is it like a new, right, or if I remember right, there was creator, editor, view only, owner at the workspace level.
Yeah, so at the workspace, there's owners, which is basically who's in charge of billing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that here, yeah. So if you go up to your workspace name and the little triangle next to it, right where it says, next to where it says pro plan, up.
Where it says IRM.
Where it says IRM, yeah. The little triangle next to IRM.
Rebecca, can you hear us?
Yes, but I'm not seeing what you're.
The name of your workspace.
What's it?
Yeah. Your name of your workspace is IRM.
Yes.
So go up by that name.
Up.
Maybe we're looking at different screens.
Oh, we are looking at different screens because I've already done all of that. Hold on. That's why.
Oh, it opens it in Google Chrome. Or something probably opened in Google Chrome.
Yeah, that's a dumb feature. But
I've always wondered.
There, right there. Perfect. So if you go and where it says there, restrict adding new collaborators to this workspace and its bases.
That's slick. I like that.
So it's one of those small things where, you don't think that it's a big deal. It doesn't really let you do anything new. But if you're in a large organization and there's lots of people who are editors and you don't really have a good handle on it, that lets you help control some of that.
Hey, does anybody know anything about this yet? Are these Are
So-
they changing permissions on share links or?
No, I don't know.
I don't
It's
know.
the way
It's
the way it's,
enterprise.
yeah, the way it's worded doesn't sound like,
Oh, it's that second one there. Do you see?
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, if you
see it,
go
I
in
just-
there. Yeah,
Well, it's
so
like the
scroll,
second-
scroll down a
the-
little bit, scroll down. Yeah,
If you
so
can-
here, there, right there. So Pro Plan can restrict adding new collaborators, but Enterprise can also avoid creating new share links.
Wow,
it.
this is the biggest concern that my company has had with Airtable since the start. So that is something that could potentially sell enterprise for my company at this point, after a year.
No, yeah, you think that in some cases people think, oh, we want new features and we'll pay for new features, but actually what it is we're willing to pay to prevent people from doing things.
Yes, very much so.
It's interesting that that's not on their, like, the Airtable pricing. If you go to airtable.com/pricing, that's not one of like their enterprise features on there. I don't think. I think it would be under editing and permissions, and they don't advertise that.
Do we
Maybe
know if it's
that's-
new?
Well, I think what's new is about,
Yeah, go airtable.com/pricing.
but yeah, that's a huge feature.
And then they also have, for enterprise, they have logging of things like who created a new base, who deleted a base, when were tables modified. And I could see also when you have a large organization that could be really useful if you want to keep track of changes like that.
And so too, it talks about moving bases from workspaces and not allowing that. Not allowing deleting workspaces.
So in chat, I went and I put the link to the enterprise audit log.
That's nice. I find it kind of funny when my clients ask me, they're like, someone deleted something and like, or something like disappeared and like, we can't find it anymore. I'm like, someone's about like, cause you can see exactly, like even on a pro plan, who deleted a record, who deleted a view, who deleted a field, who deleted a table. And then just go back in there and like see, like one dude one time got in trouble because he deleted some and then lied about deleting it because he was embarrassed. And I was like, I have an audit trail of everything that happened
Yeah.
to you guys' base.
Yeah, but you could only see that for the last, was it 2 weeks?
Yeah. Yeah, they caught it quick because it was like a contract was sent out
Mhm.
for like any signature request. And the dude accidentally hit it
Yeah.
or hit the wrong one, I guess.
But yeah, like if one thing that was before is if someone deleted an entire base, there was no audit of that. And there was no way to go get it back because there's no workspace trash that says, oh, wait a minute, I didn't want to delete that entire base.
I thought there was a work.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, yes, there is.
Oh, there is?
Yes.
I have a workspace. I know I've
Workspace
covered
trash?
bases out of
Yeah.
there.
Where is it? Maybe I've just not seen. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Was mistaken. Basically, it means that I haven't ever needed to use it.
I'm the only person in my workspace.
Oh, actually, you know what it is? Actually, it's not so much the trash. It's if it's been moved from one workspace to a different workspace.
Yes, there's no real.
There's
trail
no
of
way
that.
of trail of that. Yeah. So the appearance, what happened is it disappeared from my workspace because it went into a different workspace.
Oh yeah, but that's what they were talking about in that in some of those restrictions was being able to turn that off now to where you can't move it out of the workspace.
I'm glad they upped their sharing permissions. It's still not quite there yet, but I remember when they first released like the syncing tables, how big of a thing. I think Scott pointed out that you couldn't like do the password or email domain on a sync base or on a sync table.
Mhm.
But they've since added that too. So has anybody used the softer editing features?
I want to so bad.
Maybe we could just
Yeah.
test it out on this. I could start from scratch. And we could test it out. Or we have to have a paid plan, don't we?
Yeah, I just can't swing the price, man.
Is it, you have to have professional? Was that what they said in Built on Air? So the functionality for editing on software is available for pro and business customers only. And so pro and business, the two pricing options there.
So you're looking at least $65 per month,
Yep.
which, I mean, if you need editing and your portal is actually, you know, a great deal compared to having to add people as collaborators at Airtable.
So it's more expensive than to have editing than it is to go with Stacker.
Yeah, but even Pori's $50, and really all you get now is the membership feature. Although I did notice the other day that we now in Pori have a little,
Camila Kuvan,
I don't know what this means. I tried to ask Sam and she would not tell me. She was lips locked. I'm not special enough. I tried to drop names. I'm at off the record. No.
I believe Pori has a public roadmap.
They do.
Is there any information in addition?
Nope, it just says that.
Well, I would have to imagine it's gonna be similar to like a Stacker portal then.
I hope so.
I don't know how many different ways you can slice a portal.
Mhm.
I hate Zoom.
So
Oh, you
these-
guys are faster than me.
I was gonna say, these are the three different. I guess there's probably more. What are other front end?
Well, okay, that's the distinction, front
Okay,
end.
front end or portal.
UI bakery for more sort of back end sort of things. I'm pretty sure it's UI bakery or it's something very similar to it. I've used both very briefly. I think UI bakery allows you to select which base from Airtable, and then it will build the entire portal for you. Like literally you click one button and it will do all the linking, recognizing interconnected tables, and then you can edit, add, and delete records from your Airtable base. But it's more back-end sort of thing.
So I stopped here because I saw Stacker has an ad here, and I know Rebecca got hit with ads heavy from Stacker on Facebook as well. So it's interesting. And I haven't seen them like try to build a community either, or try to participate in any of the communities.
For UI Bakery, it's because they do every API. It's not like Stacker where it's either Airtable or Google Sheets or Salesforce. And it's not like Pori where it's only Airtable. UI Bakery is literally every API.
Okay.
So it sounds like it would have a bit of a higher learning curve.
It actually isn't, because it does everything for you. Stacker, you have to connect everything. Pori, you have to connect everything. UI Bakery. I think I clicked 3 buttons total.
Wow.
Wow.
If it's not UI Bakery, it's something very, very similar. There's so many of, portal builders that are out there. I'm gonna look through my little bookmarks and see if I find some other tool, but I'm pretty sure it was that one.
So I just got $1 out of my advertising. And so I'm not sure if that's actually Airtable. I think a couple of people said that they use it for Airtable. And now it's Retool.
Retool is not strictly Airtable either. It's also not directly compatible with Airtable. You need to do like an interim step between it.
Well, they're trying hard.
Usually when I'm comparing like software outside of Airtable, I look at what funding they've got. And I think like Software and Stacker, they've made their funding pretty public. Do you have any idea what kind of funding UI? Because it looks like
I have no clue.
Yeah. The reason why I ask is because it looks like they started not with Airtable, but actually with other things. And Airtable fits very well with the different selection.
Yeah, I think there's like 2 different, not factions, but approaches, whether you focus on Postgres and SQL related systems and then add Airtable after the fact, or the other way around.
Mhm.
I, for whatever reason, trust this a lot more than ones that start like building a UI Baker or like UI Bakery if it started with Airtable. It seems like this one's a lot more solidified from my point of view.
What's the pricing for UI Bakery?
I think it's $7 per user
Really?
at the lowest tier.
Now, if you have a portal, okay, I see. So a user is an admin, editor, or user. So that could mean, would that mean, do you know if that means like people wanting to go into the portal?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like, if you're, for instance, making this for your customers to manage, their interface with your company.
Mhm.
I think that counts as a user.
That's
Could
it.
be wrong.
Yeah. I'm guessing anyone that has a login would be a user. So when you're comparing pricing, $7 per month for that compared to
Per user, per
per
month.
user, yeah, compared to an Airtable subscription for them would be $20.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you'd save geez, what, 14? No, I can't do math.
And you'd have a lot more permissions.
Or you just pay $60 flat and have as many people as you want.
But here you at least have a lot more permissions to hide data, and it's cheaper. And this allows them to edit as well.
Yes.
This seems like a not very well known solution, but I like it. Other common ones that I've heard are Bubble. I have a client
Mhm.
building out a Bubble app. I think what it's called.
Mhm.
I feel like the complexity is a lot more with Bubble because he ended up hiring like a coach
Yeah.
with Weekly to help him like teach him how to build it.
Out of all of these, I think Bubble is probably the most robust. It's also like the absolute densest to really know.
Yeah. I saw what he was doing in it and I was like, I don't want to have to try to learn that and Airtable. Although if anybody's going to you guys consult, then do anything with Bubble.
No.
So you can, I know Sergio, I believe, does a lot with Bubble with some of his clients. I don't know if any of you know Sergio, but Sergio.
By reputation only.
Yeah.
And he does have a pretty impressive reputation.
I think, oh, So this is Sergio. He does a lot with
Yeah.
Bubble. He has a very impressive Upwork reputation. I think he's like one of the top Upwork Airtable developers. Which is cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel like there's so many different possibilities for portals, and they all have so many individual quirks that it's really hard to have a good handle on what all the different options are and how they compare.
Mhm.
I think most people, they have like one or two portals that they really like, that they understand, and then there's always new ones coming out.
yeah. Yeah. So
And
then,
you start to run into, do you only need to get data from Airtable, or do you have a bunch of different systems? Like if you use MailChimp, for instance, do you want your MailChimp data funneled into your portal? You can get it into your Airtable through various different means. So there's a possibility of only connecting a portal to Airtable. You just have to connect all your other data to Airtable first, or you leave all your stuff more or less separate and let it connect inside the portal. So depending on which option you choose, opens up certain doors for that.
how is it Stacker that allows for like you to connect MailChimp to it? Or
I don't remember MailChimp being on it. I remember Airtable, Google Sheets, and Salesforce.
yeah.
Um,
And I saw Stripe as well.
I think Stripe might be new. Yeah.
So Stacker, for those watching, it's just a user portal. There's no like front end website other than like a login
Yeah.
page.
You have to be logged in to see anything.
Yeah. Whereas the benefit, it seems like with Softer, is it has the user portal, but it also, you can have like a website with it essentially.
Mhm.
And you can like, I guess it has the advantages of what Pori has, which is like being able to display Airtable records on a website with no login and like just visually see it differently.
Yes.
Do you know if UI Bakery has like the website component?
It's all back end kind of stuff. So it's more for like dashboards.
And then I don't really know how to explain Bubble.
Bubble, I'm
Bubble
pretty
can
sure
be
you
for
can
whatever
create,
want.
yeah, you can build a website component that also has a back end component if you'd like.
You just pay for it.
Yes.
115 a month.
You can do a lot with Bubble. It's just so dang hard to wrap your head around. And their styling system makes no sense to me.
I also personally have no idea how much capacity this would be. Like, would it be enough for most users, I'm guessing,
Not a
paying
clue.
that amount?
Well, especially because when they say 3 units, how much is a unit? What is a
Yeah.
unit?
Like, how big is their server?
Yeah.
Went through UI Bakery. Are there any other portals other than these? I feel like there's one that we had talked about.
Well, technically mini extensions. Mini extension
Oh, yeah.
has a
It was
portal.
the OG portal, wasn't it?
It's like a one.
It probably was the first Airtable centric portal option.
I thought Stacker was the first one,
I thought
and
mini
then many
extensions,
extensions.
well, I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe mini extensions just advertised harder.
yeah.
I feel like the only caveat with mini extensions is that only a one page or a one table portal.
Also, I think second to Bubble, to me, it's the most complicated to set up.
And it also is very limited in layout.
Yes, it's limited in terms of layout. But it is, I think, the cheapest across the board, considering
wow.
all the extra stuff that you get with it. And you're not charged per user and all that stuff. It's a
Yeah.
flat fee. You know, it's to me a good deal. It's just a bit of a headache to get the ball rolling in terms of setup.
Yeah.
And so I know Airtable is built on Figma. Does anybody use Figma to build things through Airtable?
I have no idea, to be honest.
I thought Airtable was built out of React.
Well, they came out a while ago and released their Figma like palette, or I don't know what you call it, like a UI kit.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's for designing it, but
Yeah,
I think they just designed it there. This is how we want the look and feel to be.
yeah, it's not built out of Figma. Figma isn't a structure for application content or functionality. It's a design tool.
But mini extensions is so affordable that there's so many times I've been tempted just to get a subscription. The problem that I have is I don't have a situation where I actually need to pay for anything, where I still use WordPress because it's free.
Yeah. I've heard some really interesting like QR code or like barcode scanners
Mhm.
come into play with like specifically mini extensions.
Yeah. They have
I
a couple iterations, either creating barcode images that you could, with the traditional lines or the QR codes, or generating the numbers for a unique barcode, I believe they have as well.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I've heard very many use cases from my clients are like the updating forms, which is that just considered the portal?
No, the portal can include like a login. You can give people
Okay.
passwords. So it's a little bit separate from that.
So what I was referencing, then you can send them a form with, I think it must be this one, with an existing record, and they can edit whatever information you want them to edit and update like statuses and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is probably one of like the most common features requested when people talk about portals.
Yeah.
It's like updating, like giving approval on certain things and just having visibility. Another feature that I get asked for is having images on, like pre-filling an image on a form so that they can like see what they're like submitting actively. Do you know if that's possible with mini extensions?
I don't know.
I tried once with a like pre-fill Airtable form and spent like 2 hours on it and could not figure out how to.
I don't think you can pre-fill an attachment field.
Yeah, and I feel like we talked about this sometime maybe in the OpenCiters group, but it's something about like how once it's in Airtable, it's like stored there versus in the form, it's like a completely different, like it's a form. I don't know the exact language, but like it's stored on the web page as a form field instead of like in the actual Airtable base, which is why you can't like reference what's in the Airtable base and put it in the form. I feel like I'm making no sense, so we can move on.
Basically, I don't think you can pre-fill an attachment field.
Correct. Yes, exactly. So now we've covered two things that were new. So the biggest, or the two big ones, I think they're equally as big. Softer doing editing fields, and then Airtable allowing you to make it so people can't add other collaborators. What else was new this week in Airtable? Well, I know that there's a sandwich thing.
There's the ongoing sandwich bet. Yeah.
So scripting and custom app development is free for another 6 months.
Yet again.
So, yeah, they kicked it down the road again, which I think is I'm not surprised at that at all. I actually would have been surprised if they had done anything else.
So who gets the sandwich?
I don't know.
If like,
I think way back when we made this bet, Bill French and I said, I don't remember what my official timeline was, but eventually Airtable would make scripting a paid feature just like all the other apps.
mm-hmm.
And I think Bill said either they would kick it down the road, which they had, and
Bill
or-
said that they would make it free forever
okay, that was
for
the
everyone.
the main thing of his portion. And so because they keep kicking it down the road, technically neither of us are right. So
they haven't made it forever yet, but they haven't.
yes, so they keep saying eventually it will be paid, but for the moment it's free, and they've been saying that for over a year. So, you know,
For a lot more than just a year, I think.
yeah, because I think it's been 3 6-month extensions. So since scripting's inception, which was 2019, I think. So
Yeah.
quite some time.
Is this just like out of curiosity, because I've never messed with custom apps or anything. You said scripting app and custom app development are free features. Are they like
For now, yes.
For now.
linked together? Like, do you have to use the scripting app to do custom app development or?
Oh,
It's
no, they're
completely separate.
totally separate.
Okay.
So never mind.
All right.
Too evil to say on camera.
So I went ahead and the thread in the community forum, I put that in chat. That's where there's the this fine sandwich issue came up.
Yep.
And I think somewhere I put in like a timeline of it.
Here we have it.
I said, yeah, that's what I said. I don't believe they'll extend it again. I was incorrect, obviously. And then after that, I think is when I said, I think they'll make it a paid feature. And then Bill was like, yeah, I think it's going to be, they'll make it free because it, you know, it looks bad if you keep yanking the chain, I think is what Bill's main point was.
And
An
so this is about
expensive sandwich.
6 or 7 months ago in February. And that's of this year,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2021. So then all the way at the bottom, because Kevon, I saw you sent this and I think it was built on air. You're like, thanks for.
Yeah, so we have a new Airtable employee who is in the Airtable forums more often. And so she read one of the threads. It might be this one or it might be another one. And she referenced the sandwich bet. So she read through the whole, there it is, Jordan Scott. So
Yeah.
You
So
read through
she's
the
the
whole
other
thing.
big news.
That's nice that they recognize that and that they actually do read the forum.
Yeah.
But yeah, so February of 2020 was when scripting app was released, and then they said it would be free until September. September of 2020 came by. They said, let's give it another 6 months. So that was March of 2021.
Yep.
March came by. They said 6 more months until September. It's September. They said 6 more months. So
So we know that they're A/B testing on all of us, and we know that they're watching the things that we use. It makes me wonder if more people are finding ways to use scripts to solve their problems than using the apps.
well, scripting is an app. So
yeah.
Well, right, but I mean, like the ones kind of provided, the things
Yeah,
that
so
Airtable built.
as
to-
as an alternative to the dedupe block or the other ones, it'd be hard to replicate chart, but I guess you could technically if you were really keen.
I don't think you could replicate chart and script.
If you really wanted to, you could, but you would. A
You should
nightmare.
probably just.
No,
program.
you'd have to.
It would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like with all the time you would invest in.
It's not worth it,
writing the
no.
script for
No,
that,
you'd
But
have to
you
go through a
pay for it.
third-party service to create the image and then find a way of getting the image and then showing the images marked out.
Yeah, but you could replace the deduplication block and you could replace the bulk change, bulk, whatever that one's called. You
That,
could
yeah, bulk batch update.
batch update, you could. You know, some of the more operational based ones are replaceable through scripting if you know how to script.
CSV import.
Technically,
Yeah,
yeah.
in some ways, the import would be better because if you do it for a script, you can have
You have more control.
more control over the handling and the mapping of things.
Yep.
And you might be able to clean it up on its way there.
Yes.
That would be nice.
But you have to know how to code in order to do that.
Yeah.
That's
So
the
if anybody else is very proficient in scripting and would like to come teach us all, we will do a whole series, as many weeks as you want.
I think we have two scripting experts here currently.
And I think we're both self-taught, aren't we?
yes.
Yeah.
The first time I really did anything of note in JavaScript was for the Airtable contest, and I won. And so did Kavan. So it's really not that hard to learn if you really want to.
And if you are code curious, and I think that Airtable is a wonderful way to try and apply what knowledge that you have and to practice it. It is not the best place to start if you have zero knowledge at all. It's just too overwhelming, but once you just get a little bit of skill, you can go nuts with it because it's such a fun, easy way of trying things out, testing it, getting input and output quickly and easily.
Way back when Chris put on that Airtable conference, Kavan had a session about the different types of coding that you could do in Airtable, which included formulas, if I recall correctly. And I agree that that's kind of the first step towards JavaScript and coding and how to analyze your data and do a little bit extra with it. And if you feel pretty confident with formulas and find them a little bit limiting, the next step is to test out the scripting app, which is free for another at least 6 months. I don't know. And then the scripting language that is related to Airtable in the scripting app, or if you were to use a custom app, it's JavaScript. JavaScript is an insanely popular coding language. So there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of videos and articles and books about how to write in JavaScript. And it's not, unlike Airtable's Markdown, Airtable-based JavaScript is just JavaScript with only a few custom functions attached to it. So getting the basics of how to work with JavaScript, thousands of videos.
The main thing I would say is when it comes to doing things in scripting app versus scripting automations,
that's the key. There's
like these weird, why is it different? And that can be really, really frustrating. I say, if you're just starting out, work with scripting app. And then after you feel comfortable with that, switch to scripting automations.
Yeah, the key difference there is to remember the scripting app relies on human intervention. You have to click the run button for the script to begin, and an automation is being triggered by the automation itself. And so you can't have any of the type in the name of the new fields that you want to make. That has to be coming from the automation, either the trigger or a previous step in it. There's no human interaction. So while certain types of things, await input.txt is something that you would do in a scripting app, you can't await an input in the scripting automation because there's no one there to input that information. That's just a key difference between the two of them that you have to remember.
And there's also lots of other little small gotchas like
output.markdown,
output.text. And then there's output set, and then there's fetch, and all of the issues that are related to fetch and how it's different between the two of them. And adding a pause where you want to, or a delay, is not something that you want to do as a newbie scripter in automations, because it requires just a little bit more knowledge when you're first starting out. But if you want to add a pause when you're just starting out in scripting app, I find the easiest way is to put in a input text and then do nothing with the result. So, but Rebecca, I mean, you've been working away at writing formula fields, so you're probably ready to start doing some full scripts.
It's a lot of the same. It's a lot of the same sort of thought process that you do when you're writing a formula. The syntax is different because, it's the difference between Airtable's own formula engine and regular old JavaScript, but if statements, switch statements, all of those concepts are things in JavaScript as well.
I've been able to hack my way through a couple of modified script templates and things. It's really like the getting into the right place part that I don't really, it doesn't click.
You need a good reason to start using a script. And then if you're using a sample script, it always helps if people put in comments for what each step does, just to explain what's going on without having to like eagle eye look at every line of code and figure out how they've used their variable naming conventions and all that.
What is a good reason to use a script in Airtable?
Anytime a formula is impossible. So something that I use regular scripts and automation scripts for are custom auto numbering. So let's say you have group A and then 10 people who are in group A. If you want to label each of them 1 through 10, maybe with a prefix, and then you have group B and then 5 people in there. If you had an auto number, it would label them 1 through 15 and not 1 through 10, 1 through 5. I've written an automation script that will take in, you pick a field as an input for which value to group by or series of values to group by, and then it will take all of the records that are in each of those groups and then number them 1 through whatever. So you have your own custom auto numbering that is triggered whenever a new record enters the view or leaves the group or etc. You can't do that with a formula.
And then the other thing that I find scripts are good for is if you have a workflow that says, always do these 3 things together as a unit, that, when you're creating, this thing, you also need to make sure that you set this value and do this other thing. When you have a script doing it, then that script can control, make sure that all 3 things happen, rather than someone does step 1 and step 2, but forgets to do step 3.
Yep.
Are you back, Ben?
I am. I might have missed part of that. Sorry.
Ensuring workflows was Kavan's point. If you have a series of steps you need to follow, scripts allow you to make sure that that happens in the correct order.
On the note of Camille, yours with having like the sequential numbers. So it's kind of like relating records in the same table to like the ones before and after it.
Yes. So you can select which view to use as the order. And then it will, based on however it appears in that view, 1 through whatever, next group 1 through whatever, next group 1 through whatever.
Yeah. That's nice.
Which is the same thing as running totals don't work well in Airtable. That's another great use case for a script.
Yeah. One time I was trying to create I feel like scripting would definitely be useful here, but it was like automatically calculating the podcast number and like just a table with all their podcasts. So they were like scheduling them out. They wanted to know what number, but they couldn't use auto number because they had like deleted some. And so I ended up like linking all of the podcasts to one record and a different table and finding the max value there, adding 1 to it. And then when they would create the new record in the podcast table, it would automatically link there, take the value of that podcast number and make it the podcast number and the podcast on the new podcast record.
Yeah, that's a variation on
W's
Hall. And then the other thing that you can do about it with that is you can actually change, so you can set the field permissions so that no one can set the particular value except an automation.
Yep.
So if you don't want other people messing with it afterwards accidentally, set it so that no one can edit it except an automation.
Yeah, that's a wish list item that they add that type of permission for the scripting app or other apps as well. Right now, you can set it so no one can edit the value of a particular field, unless it's submitted via a form or edited via an automation. And I wish there was a third option for also another app, and you get to select which one. But yes, excellent point about enforcing data validation via a script using an automation.
You guys mentioned W. Van Hall a few times. Is he still around in the Airtable community, or has he moved on to different things?
We don't know what happened. I think there were.
So he had some major health issues, I think.
Okay.
And then he came back really, really briefly and then disappeared again.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
absolute legend in the community. Like, I don't know another expert that doesn't know him or of him and his various foundation he set up.
I mean, I would love to hear what he would think of what you can do with Airtable now, because so much has been added. There's so many more new capabilities that I think
he was pre-count, roll up, and lookup fields having the only select via a certain condition option. So he had like an incredibly complicated but pretty reliable system of having to deal with that before that feature was announced. So like, you know, I wonder if he could tackle some of Airtable's current limitations.
One of my favorite ones that I've used quite a bit is a tool he created for like in a workday formula, excluding holidays. So this was one of his posts. I don't remember when, but he basically just created this base that you could copy, and you can pick whatever years that you want to exclude holidays. You can exclude these like specific holidays, and then it just spits out this like perfect string to put in your workday formula to exclude all these holidays. Because I have clients who like they need to calculate based on like this, they start work with somebody, and then they need to exclude weekends and holidays, which workday does weekends, and then this does all the other holidays.
And thank goodness, Easter's always a Sunday. Because other than, I mean, trying to figure out which day is Easter each year is, you know, you have to look at the phase of the moon.
Yeah, so I have no idea how he came up with this, but this definitely took some time.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff like that.
And none of it's commented, because you can't comment things in formulas.
Yeah. I feel like you could comment using like ifs, but it would be like all over the place.
Oh yeah, I've done that. And yeah, you can do it, and it does work fairly well. You just have an if statement, if, and then you put in your comment, and then comma, and then whatever you actually want to have. So I actually do that a lot whenever I have a formula with what I call magic numbers of, you know, for some reason the client wants to take this number and multiply it times 8. Why 8? Okay, well, 8 has some kind of special value or meaning for that company. So then I'll say, well, you know, field times if the reason why the number is 8, comma 8.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other times that I've used his solutions, but I feel like whenever I search for like complex solutions, it ends up coming up.
Yeah.
And he's wrote some like 3-pager in the Airtable forums. It's impressive. Has anybody ever met him? Like even online?
Nope.
Yeah. I will say that his post on the pretty print number routines was the inspiration for what I have for the ready-made formulas for formatting numbers as a string. Is that he had an amazing base that I copied it and I used his formulas so many times. And then regular expressions came out. And I'm like, okay, so went through several different versions of that formula, but it all traces back to W's original pretty print routines.
Is that like his proper base? Like he has a base with creating or like formatting a string as like proper. So like the first letter of every word and like a sentence will be capitalized.
Capitalize.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what proper case is. I don't think he had one. I don't recall
So
seeing.
he does.
Either that, or if it does, it was limited, like the number of words that you could have.
That may have been the case. I think I have it if anybody wants it or needs it. I'll see if I can find it. Proper.
Well, I mean, part of the problem is right now with regular expressions, you could have a much better, much easier version. There it is.
So this was the eventual output of.
Yeah. But it's limited in how many names you can, how many words you can have in the name.
Yep.
Do you know how many it is limited to?
I wouldn't know. I just know that based on the technology, it has to be limited. So there you see Robert is lowercase.
Yeah, it's looking at how many fields are in between almost proper and name, I imagine is what the actual limit is. Because I think each of those numbers, 13, 20, 24, I think is the index of the start of whichever word that field is relating to. And that's how you're ending up with capitalization for that.
So it looks like 5. That 5 words is the limit.
Yeah, I think so.
But with regular expressions, there wouldn't have to be a limit at all.
Yeah, I don't really understand how to use the regular expressions.
No one does.
Yeah.
No.
Either, but if you buy the ready-made formulas app, depending on what you're trying to do, you don't have to because Kavan's already done it for you.
I use a lot of regular expressions in those apps. But no, even so, do I understand regular expressions? No, I use a regular expression tester until I get something that I think works. And then I try and think of all of the possible edge cases and I test them.
That's impressive that you made the app for it. And also openly admit that they're the most confusing thing ever. But you still managed to make the app. That's awesome.
No.
I had so I have a client, they do like this big like merge field where they take a bunch of different fields and they use it to tweet out. And sometimes certain fields are there, certain fields aren't. And we went through this morning where they were having like, people wouldn't fill out all the fields. And so this, like when they would copy the formula, it would have like 5 spaces in between certain things. And so we were trying to figure out a good solution to take out the 5 spaces. And
And have just one space?
yeah, well, yeah, like ideally just one space between each word. So we ended up writing ifs for every single, there are 15 different fields pulled into this one formula. And so we wrote 15 ifs, like if it's blank, then don't include the space, but if it's not. So we tried using like a substitute, I think it was, like if there's a double space, and I copied that my formula and like kept wrapping it around 15 times.
Yeah.
That didn't work. There were still double spaces. Does anybody know a solution for that?
So, I mean, there's 2 things that come to my mind. One is take a look at how you're originally gathering the data and concatenating it to begin with. Because a lot of times you can just say, if this fill value, then that fill value at a space. But if it's just another spaces, the first thing that comes to my mind is regular expressions.
Okay.
Search for the pattern 1 or more spaces and replace it with 1 space.
And that would make sense. Rather than having 15 ifs.
Because then you're limited at 15.
Well,
what if suddenly they say, suddenly we've got 17 things. Then you have to go and rewrite that entire formula. And you have to remember, what on earth were we thinking and how did we get it this way?
yeah.
So
Luckily there's 15 ifs, but it's in so it's a concatenate formula. And so it's just different like things in the concatenate formula.
Mhm.
So it's not like 15 nested ifs, real like true like nested ifs.
Mhm.
Although that would be a nightmare.
Actually, I find nested ifs, if you format them correctly, are actually not that bad. So like over the years, I've really gotten how I write my formulas. You'll probably see that whenever I post a formula, it's almost always spread across multiple lines. And so I've developed a personal style guide for how I do different things. And I find it makes it so much easier when I'm really strict about following that style guide.
We
I'm
could
curious-
definitely plan a few episodes around it and go into depth on it.
I'm curious what you guys use for writing your formulas, because I just write them all in the little formula box editor, which isn't ideal. But I see like W. Van Hall has like these like it like looks nice. It's not like all bunched up. But what do you guys use to edit and
For the
create?
formulas I actually use, I type it directly in the formula editor because I don't need to see it pretty. If I'm answering a question on the community forums, I type the formula in the community forums. So I think people who need more formatting options and seeing things broken down and indented would do well with Visual Studio or some other text editor that's code friendly, and then just copying and pasting.
I was gonna say, I feel like I tried tabbing to make it look pretty just in the editor, and then it wouldn't.
Yeah, you can.
I was
So
like,
what,
go on.
I was going to say, when you ask me what I use to write formulas, and I'm like, there is no one thing. I use whatever is available. If I need something that is fairly short, quick and dirty, I type it directly in that one line in the formula editor. But I'm on a Windows computer, so a lot of times I use Notepad, which is just a little plain old text editor that comes in Windows. The reason why I use it is because it's super fast to open up. I also use a code editor. So a lot of people use VS Code. I use Atom. Actually, sometimes I use VS Code, sometimes I use Atom. I use both of them. It's whatever one happens to be open. The other thing that I've used sometimes is I actually use Scripting App, because Scripting App will do the bracket matching for me. Now, occasionally I get lots of funky colors and other complaints, but it's there and it's pretty fast if it's right there. I type a lot of my formulas directly in the community forums as well. What I don't like about that is I always like testing, and I've been burned a couple of times by not fully testing it. And I post it and it turns out like I have a missing comma or an extra comma or something like that. But whatever you have at hand, but if you're going to be more than a line long, don't use the scripting. Don't use the formula editor.
Use the ready-made formula.
Well, ready-made formulas will have some of the formulas for you. You can't actually edit them. One thing that is particularly nice that I took a lot of care doing is the formulas that it puts out follow my style guide. So you'll see what it looks like to write a multi-line formula. Where do I indent things? Where do I put my parentheses? How do I decide what goes on a new line?
Is that style guide something you came up with, or you use like a standard style guide? I have no idea.
It's my personal style guide that I came up with. I mean, it follows some very common things. Do I indent 2 spaces or 4 spaces sometimes? Where I put my commas and things like that. The main things that are different are I have my nested ifs and my switch statements. But other than that, it's pretty much have everything on its own line. Oh, and then my style guide also says, when do I use concatenate versus the ampersand to concatenate? That it's an evolving thing. It's changed over the years. Now I don't even think about it. I just automatically write it that way. But it's really common for me to write formulas that are 10 or more, 20 lines long.
Yeah.
I just use description apps. And I really actually only do this for the insane ones. This was me trying to figure out the formula I was talking about this week, the way that I had written it before. basically all of this, it output this little blurb of text right here. Only like under this line specifically, it wouldn't give me a comma. And this is so like, this is also goes on for like 5 months. There's 5 possible months that could be on here, and it has to be variable length. So finally, I cheated and I bought the Ready-Made Formulas app, and I got this little guy, which just takes my lookup of my balance and uses all that regex. All of this is Greek to me. I don't know what any of this says or does. I couldn't fix it if it broke, but it works right now. And I get this nice little variable length. All this is doing is looking at that field. If I wanted to, I could come nest that in here and get rid of these extra text fields, but I have other places I need this text also. So I just keep them there. It's doing a few other things too, but.
Yeah, I said, even if you know how to create that formula for formatting a number, if you need to do it, is it really worth your time trying to recreate it compared to just buy the app once?
8 months. 8 months. Actually closer to almost a year now, because it's been a few months since I realized it had been 8 months. So it's been a while, and that's been the one thing holding that project back. It's that on that one line under one circumstance where if it had change after the decimal and it was more than 3 characters before the comma, it just didn't do it. Well, that's 90% of the numbers that I'm dealing with. So that did not work. But now we're implementing this base this month. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, and that's another thing is when it comes to formulas that I see for free on the forums and other places is a lot of times I see people, they're posting forums with formulas, and I look at the formula and I'm like, well, that'll probably work in 90% of the cases. How sure are you that you won't end up having a situation that doesn't fit that 90%? And if you're sure, go ahead and that edge case is not going to come up, then go ahead and use it. But there's a lot of formulas out there that I wouldn't trust because they don't handle edge cases well.
Nacho.
Nacho's here today.
Yay.
Nacho here to sign off.
Yep. Does anybody have any last final Airtable updates for this week?
Technically, I released an app.
What?
Yay,
That's
which
so
one?
exciting.
What?
We'll have to start with that next week.
Yeah, I didn't want to hijack the show. So
All right, we will.
You can
we will
hijack
start.
next week's show.
it's,
Okay.
I will say-
it's available.
What is it?
Junction Assistant. I've talked about it before.
Oh,
I
you
think.
create a junction table.
Yeah, create a junction table, create new junction table records, all that kind of good stuff.
Awesome. Oh, it's got a really cool icon too.
Yeah, free pick. Super useful as long as you credit them. So you'll see at the bottom of the marketplace, I link to where I get all of my icons for my marketplace app. Highly recommend.
You want to give like a really quick demo today for the people who are
I mean,
watching and wondering, and then we'll start off next week.
geez. Yeah, I
Putting
can.
you on the spot.
Or do you
Well-
want time to prepare?
No, I have it up. So, quick rundown. This is the most complicated test base that I have. It's a series of various different linked table records. In this case, it's like, what if somebody sold various types of smoothies? So a particular smoothie has various different ingredients. That's an example of a junction table where each recipe has varying amounts of ingredients that go in to make a particular type of smoothie. Someone might order more than one smoothie at once, so you need line item records. I think that's the most common example for junction tables, where If somebody orders something from me, I need to know that they've ordered 5 hats and 3 shoes. You need a record in Airtable to say 5 hats, another one to say 3 shoes, all linked to the same purchase order. That kind of introduction stuff out of the way. What my app lets you do, aside from being able to create a new junction table, if you don't have one already, you can give it a name and then select any of the existing tables to link to. It will create a new table and then link to those tables after the fact. It will also let you, if I have, what table am I on? I've selected my line item. So this is the instance where I'm saying I want more, I want to order various different shakes at once. You'll see I have a warning symbol on because the way I've set up this base, I only want someone to link to one record at once. I want each line item to reference only one item being ordered. So what my app allows you to do is to split linked records that you select. So I've selected all of these different types of smoothies. I think they're actually called shakes, whatever. I'm not prepared. If I click this warning symbol, it will actually split my current selection into 3 new junction table records instead of linking one new junction table to all 3 shakes. So you'll see on the side, I now have all of these records that have popped up. It's telling me that I have existing junction table records that are linked to either lemon ginger shake, strawberry banana shake, or dark chocolate. Now I would pick which purchase order I want to assign this to. I'm going to click the 4th one. You'll see that, you know, by happenstance, all 3 have already ordered. I already have 3 junction table records that match my current selection. So if I don't want to create duplicates, I already know that this particular selection is not useful for me. So if I go back to the products that I have, instead, these are all 1 liter. If I go and pick a different selection, I think if I do these 2, the last like major feature of
Did you just click on them over there?
Yes, I did. In Airtable's UI, this was a feature actually requested by someone on the forums before the app was even released. If I make a selection in a grid view in Airtable by clicking the checkboxes over here, you'll see that it knows what table I'm on, products. The related product field now has this blue cursor button. And if I click that, it will import that selection. And now I know with these 2 particular linked records, there are no junction table records associated with purchase order number 4. If I click that, I can open up purchase number 4 and look at what the linked line items are. And you can just see none of those are these 2. Really, it's supposed to help with preventing the creation of duplicate junction table records and creating multiple junction table records at the same time. Just to demonstrate, I'm pretty sure this was one. Nope. One of these, I think, already was associated. If I were to click one, whichever one of those that was, it would show up as a potential duplicate. Last but not least, I would click create at the bottom. You see it says 2 new purchase order line item records will be created. So you always know which table records are being created in and how many. If I turn off the lightning bolts, only 1 will be created. It'll say down there. And again, I'm being warned that multiple records are being linked to, even though I've set as a, setting for that field that it should only link to 1. I'm going to turn that back on. 2 will be created. If I hit create, it automatically updates. The 2 that are created will open up, and then I can add additional information like the quantity. If I click the down arrow, the second field, the second record that I created also shows up. So if I created 10 records, for instance, all 10 would open automatically, and I would just click down, down, down to add any additional information. Run
That
down.
is so useful. I love that it's the same UI as Airtable.
All of this is done with Airtable's custom blocks API. All all of the components that they give us. This one actually has no third-party packages included. It's straight Airtable. In fact, there's actually no settings. It's literally just log in if you want to unlock the premium features. You can, off the top of my head, premium features are the split function and creating a new junction table. So you can still create new junction table records if you wanted. It would just create one record for these two selected, and you still get the opportunity to see any potential duplicates. I think that's probably the main thing that is useful about this app to anyone. And you don't have to log in or have an account to visualize any potential duplicates as you're making it.
That's awesome.
That is very awesome.
I'm so excited to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's
So
it's on the marketplace.
yeah. What was your review timeline? Like, how long did it take for it to be reviewed?
Less, this is a bad example because was a very simple app. In fact, I had one, when I sent it in, there was only one problem with it. It was a typo on my end. And as soon as it was fixed, it was like ready to be released. And then I went back and said, I actually want to add a new feature. It was actually the warning symbol. This thing, that was a feature I wanted to go back and add after the fact. And then I'm now part of the beta command line interface thing. And so when I resubmitted after the fact, they were like, are you sure you want to use the beta to do all this other stuff? So it would have gone much faster. It was just a series of things didn't line up on my end. I only really had one round of revisions that were required.
So for those listening, what's the struggle here with getting apps reviewed? They're just slow.
Yeah, it really depends on what app you're doing and how complicated it is. If you're using external packages, like for instance, my master calendar, I didn't invent that calendar. I use a package called fullcalendar.io. And anytime you use an external package not created by Airtable, they take extra time to review it to make sure that it's safe and not filled with viruses, etc. They also have a more or less design review component. So if they think that the design of your app needs a little bit of work, it takes longer for the app process to be reviewed. I think this app has looked exactly the same for several months. So the user interface has not changed. Also, as a note, if you have a very narrow window, this collapses.
Nice.
Okay. No, I was just wondering because I'm going on 2+ months for mine to get reviewed.
Yeah, that's on the longer end, I think, from my perspective. My first app doesn't count because it was reviewed as part of the contest.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that was.
Yeah, I think we had a totally different workflow
Right,
and different employees.
That's not going to happen again. So I really only have two comparison points. And then this one took longer because they approved it and were like, it's ready to release. And then I said, I want to add a new feature. And so they had to go back and make sure the thing that I just added didn't blow the thing up.
Yeah.
So we just had Amit join from the Airtable community.
Hey
He
guys.
contributes a lot there.
Hello.
Do you have anything you wanted to add here?
Well, I just joined, so I don't really know what the discussion is about.
So we were just revealing Camille's latest app, but I actually think we're about to jump off.
Yeah.
Because it's at time. But thank you for joining.
Yeah.
Come back next week.
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm in Israel, so it's kind of far away for the time. It's 3 a.m.
Oh,
right
goodness.
now.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Normally
Yeah.
it's 2 a.m., I think, in your time. It's 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
Right.
I don't know what's 7 p.m. Eastern. Right now it's 3 o'clock, 3:20.
Yeah. So we
Yeah.
started about an hour and 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. So even less convenient, probably.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining. Thank you, Amit, for joining. And hopefully we'll see you next week, but no pressure on waking up at 2 a.m.
we'll continue to meet each other on the group.
Of course. Of course. All right. We'll see you all next week.
Bye.